and our next speaker actually is involved in that area of the relationship, and that is David Wong, who's a good friend and a partner of mine in one of my ventures, but also been working with the government of Alberta and China and Asia generally. He was the managing director of the Alberta office for China, and had offices throughout China and Hong Kong, and has been involved, I would say, in the economic development side of China-Canada relationships for, well, a lot of years, right, Dave? I won't say how many, but quite a few. And has also been living in Beijing for something in the range of 14 years, 15 years, something like that, maybe more, and brings a perspective of someone who is resident there, but currently in Canada, and has actually done the travel too. So be interested in your perspective, David, of life in China today, the opportunities tomorrow, and how we can get that relationship better.
Okay, thanks, Doug. It's actually the 14 years, 15 years was with the Canadian Embassy in Beijing, which I had the pleasure and honor of working with still a diplomatic Gordon Holden. We had some great times then, and I'm so glad that we still continue our relationship. We we refer to U of A as Da Ge, and it's nice of Gordon to give some acknowledgement to my alma mater. In total, I've been living in Beijing. I retired from the government of Alberta and the embassy about, it'd be almost 7 years ago now. But I remained in Beijing. I've been living there 22 years now in total. I've spent in fact, more of my working life in Asia than in Canada. And my first time to China was 1986, under the tutelage of Barry Mayer, who, again, I'm fortunate to keep up that relationship. And he is really a Da Ge. He's the big brother to me, anyways. The thing I'd like to kind of emphasize is living in Beijing. I remind myself and I remind people, newcomers and people coming here from Canada, that you're coming into a different culture. It's we live in Canada. It's a multi-cultural society because we're a country of immigrants, as several people have mentioned. We're only 37 million people compared to 1.4 billion. And I think the other statistic I saw is that in China, with 1.4 billion, there's only 1 million expats there, and that's including students. So it's that part of the community that you're living in China is different. The other thing is, it's a different type of government. In China, I'm living in a communist government, and as Madam Liu said, it's and I can certainly attest to it. It's just different. It's not that one is better than the other, but you have to remind yourself that the things that we're used to here are not the same over there, and vice versa. Another example is how they're dealing with COVID. I mean, they have a zero tolerance for COVID, and it's amazing to me. The numbers of COVID cases are in single digits. It pops up a couple times in double digits, but that's about it. When you see the numbers in Alberta and North America, it boggles my mind. But anyway, that's another issue. That kind of touches on safety. Um, the 22 years that I've lived in Beijing, I've never had a problem with safety. The and I remember when I used to have a lot of trade missions come, and I would tell people, it's you're visiting a country and cities that are mega big compared to Canada, so you have to be careful. I have to use some common sense. But generally speaking, I tell everybody you're in the safest place possible, and I do feel that way with physical safety and also health safety. Uh, I've unfortunately had a couple medical problems while living there, and they were handled just very well. I'm still around, still kicking. Um, the other thing I remind people is that you are a guest in the country, so try to um, adhere to the customs and regulations um, in while you're in Beijing, while you're in China. It's and I have to say the general attitude of the Chinese towards foreigners is really quite something. They respect the foreigner. I've again never had any problems. Even to this day, if I'd mention I'm from Canada, usually the first comment they make is a reference to Norman Bethune. The first time when I went to China in 1986, I didn't even know who Norman Bethune was. And we didn't have Wikipedia then, so when I came back, I went right to the library to find out who he was. Well, to this day, children in China are still reading about Norman Bethune. And it's an admiration, and that's passed on to Canadians, which, we're quite fortunate that way. The other thing I wanted to mention is specific to Calgary and specific to Alberta. The city of Calgary is twinned with the city of Daqing, and the province of Alberta is twinned with the province of Heilongjiang. And that this year is the 40th anniversary of that, something that Barry Mayer was part of back in 1982, and under Peter Lougheed, uh, who signed the agreement, and I love hearing stories from Barry of that period when they made that happen. Um, so that part is very prominent in my view, and very fortunate for Canadians and Albertans that are trying to do business there. And on that subject of the twinning with Heilongjiang, I still maintain some close contacts with the Foreign Affairs Bureau in Harbin, the capital of Heilongjiang. And I notice on the participants that John Liu, uh, Chinese name is Liu Zhen, is from that office and responsible for North American. And I see him waving there. So thank you very much, John, for all your help and support. Whenever I travel to Heilongjiang, in my role as representing University of Calgary, John and his staff are extremely helpful in helping with the logistics and I somebody asked me how many times have I gone to Harbin or to Heilongjiang, and I have to say it's well over 100 times. I love going up there, and they have a fantastic ice sculpture festival that's coming up in January. Um, the difficulty right now, because of COVID and what I just explained about the zero tolerance manner that's being handled here in China, was very apparent to me. I just got off the plane yesterday, actually. So uh, going through the capital airport in Beijing, it was incredible. I, I I've never seen it so empty, and that's the international part. Most of the duty-free stores were all shut down. It's it. I could really see the impact on tourism, and I think Gordon mentioned this in his presentation. It it must be devastating. I don't know the exact figures, but Council Liu probably has that number. But I think in the past there was something like 50 or 60 million foreign visitors come to China. It's a trickle right now. It's so the effect must be tremendous. Fortunately for China, they have 1.4 billion people, and a lot of those are moving up in the economy and have money. Uh, I can't remember what Madame Liu said, but my estimates is the middle class now is probably somewhere close to 400 million. So that's very substantial. So tourism in China is suffering from the lack of international travelers, but it's thriving with domestic travel, that's for sure. Every time there's a Chinese holiday, the most recent one was October 1, the national holiday. It's, they have, I think they forecasted or noted that there were over 100 million um, train trips alone. I don't know if you have to count plane and everything else. If you go to the domestic part of any of these airports, which I've had to travel domestically, they're thriving. The trains themselves. There's something like 15 every 15 minutes. There's a high-speed railway train going from between Beijing and Shanghai, for instance. So that part of the economy is still going quite strong. The the difficulty is international. So for 2 years now, in the past, the University of Calgary would have professors come and visit our partner universities in China. We haven't had one. Um, it's something of a job security for me. At least I'm here. I'm in China. So, but it's very, and it's not impossible to come to China, but it's difficult. When I go back, for instance, I'm going to be looking at close to 4 weeks of quarantine, and the flights have diminished tremendously. So I'll have to make sure that I have the right flight going back. So these are some of my comments. I'd be more than happy if people want to know more about um, how to the logistics of getting into China. Thank God for Zoom and Tensite and Skype and what have you.